You are listening to Co-Create Your Life. In this podcast, we delve deep into the law of attraction, dispel common misconceptions, and give our listeners the tools they need to build a magical, purposeful existence in their everyday lives. Reclaim the creative power you already possess and join us at co-creationcoaching.org/create. That's co-creationcoaching.org/create.
Welcome to Co-Create Your Life. This is episode 27, The Single Greatest Key to Success in Manifesting. I am Brandon Oliveris.
And I'm Christine Oliveris.
And I'm Justin Williams.
And today we are talking about something I'm not going to quite give away yet, but it's something that is, in my opinion, the one thing that if you have this will make the whole process a lot easier. It's not something I've never discussed before. That's a double negative. It's really important, and I was really drawn to discussing this topic today, so here we are. So before all of that starts, I have an announcement. As always, if you would like to see the show notes for this podcast, or to get the transcript, or to leave a comment, you can go to co-creationcoaching.org/create027, and you can see it there. So, if there was one thing in manifesting that was the single greatest key, as this title says, what do you think that could possibly be? And none of you give it away. I think a lot of people would say what? Probably feeling good. Belief, maybe expectation. I don't know, what else would they say? Things like that. It's things along those lines, probably.
They might say
Visualization.
Visualization, alignment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The energy or something.
Yep.
They might even say God.
Yeah, universe, God, whatever.
Universe, intelligence, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, those are all very common answers. In my opinion, it's something totally different, and I have talked about this before. To give the answer, I'm going to first introduce our weekly segment, Quote of the Week. And this week's quote is from someone I actually hadn't heard of before, Tom Venuto. And he's talking about what I believe is the single greatest key to manifesting. And he wasn't actually talking about it in the context of manifesting, but it's a great, great, great quote. So here is what he says. He says, "Do not quit. The universe always bows to persistence." I like that. I think it's totally true. You like that? I think it's great.
I do.
So, if it's not obvious, that what he's talking about here is persistence. And persistence is, to me, the one greatest thing that if you don't have persistence, nothing else is going to work. And, it's so important for a lot of different reasons, actually. Persistence, like I said, I think if you have persistence, and assuming you know how to work through resistance, you're not just getting stuck in a big, big thing of resistance or whatever, then you're almost definitely going to get your goal. Okay? And the reason isn't, what the Bible says, God grants you your wishes if you keep asking. Well, Christine might say it is. But in my perspective, it's because when you're persistent, again, a few reasons. Number one, you're feeding energy to that goal. So, the more energy you feed to it, the more active it becomes. And the more active it becomes, the more it tends to manifest. And, eventually it totally manifests in the physical. And number two, because every time you focus on the goal, you are basically telling your subconscious mind, hey, this is what I want. And each time your subconscious mind will say, at first, it'll say no because whatever, resistance, because these fears, because these beliefs or whatever. But each time you ask, or not ask, each time you focus on that goal, then the subconscious mind will basically, one can say, start running out of excuses. It'll work through its stuff. It will not have really a reason anymore to not allow it. You're creating a pathway to your goal. So every time you bring up the goal, the subconscious mind gets a little clearer, a little clearer, a little clearer. So, those are just a few reasons that it's good to be persistent. I mean, there are lots of reasons, but persistence, in my experience, the more I've been persistent with goals, the more they've happened. And what tends to happen is that, and I'll talk more specifically about those points I mentioned a little bit later, but what tends to happen when you're working on a big goal is that you focus on it and you get the resistance. If that resistance scares you off, or you're kind of afraid to move forward, you're not going to move forward, and so you're not going to get the goal. If you're persistent and you keep stepping forward, and meeting with resistance and working through it, and then stepping forward and meeting with resistance and moving through it, it's you're going to get there. But it's sort of a sign that you really mean what you're saying. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I really do want this, because I keep focusing on it and focusing on it and focusing on it. And so, if you just focus on it once, now this can work for a current level goal. You can focus on it once and get it. But for a next level goal, as I've talked about before, it's not going to work.
And there's an LOA teacher, I won't mention who it is, but I think this person thinks it's weak to ask more than once.
Right, yeah. They just say not to do it. I don't know if they think it's weak. It's just they say it's
No, but I thought they said that it's a lack of trust or something.
Oh, yeah,
that's what they
possibly.
said.
Maybe. I don't know. It's been a while.
No, you're not asking. You're not even right. You're aligning yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
It's okay to keep doing that.
Right. Well, it's like, I'll give an analogy. It's like if you were, let's say, to be in a car and you set the GPS and you say, here's where I want to go. And after the first instruction, let's say it says, oh, okay, turn left on this street. And you go to that street and you turn left, and then, oh, good, I got the instruction. Let me turn off the GPS. You're never going to get there.
No.
Right? Because, I mean, you asked for the directions once. You say, okay, tell me what the next step is. And then you turned it off. And, okay, if you're one turn away from your destination, that's great. But if you happen to be more than one turn away from your destination, then you're a bit out of luck. Right? I mean, if you do that, you're going to get lost. But obviously the thing to do is persistence would be, let it give you every step of the directions to getting there, and then you get there, and that's it. You do it the whole way through. If you do one step and then you give up and you say, oh, that's it, I'm not doing it anymore, then that's not persistence. You're not going to actually get there. That's a lot of how this is. If you ask once, or if you focus on it once, and then, get the resistance you get and you work through it or whatever, and you say, well, I don't have to ask anymore, you're not actually going to get there because you haven't arrived. You've taken a step, but you've not gotten there, and the pathway isn't open to getting there. Right? So the reason I say that persistence is the greatest key is because it's basically your GPS. It's basically, that part of yourself that keeps pushing forward. It keeps pushing forward. It keeps pushing forward. And if you don't have that drive, that urge to push forward, that persistence, then nothing will ever happen. If I say, okay, I want this goal, and I say it once, and you don't do it again, you're not creating a pathway. You're taking one step, and that's it. And you're done. And it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't get you all the way. But if you keep being persistent, if you keep focusing on it reasonably, I'm not saying this is not obsession, this is persistence. I'm not saying to focus on it all hours of the day. That's a sign of getting stuck in resistance. But if you focus on it over and over and over again, let's say twice a day, whatever works for you, and you keep doing that, then you will make progress, even if you don't know anything else about how this works. If you keep focusing on it, and you keep not only focusing on it, but really choosing it and saying, I'm going to do this, it will happen. I was telling you about this before this started, Justin. I just manifested getting an iMac that I just bought last week. And it'll be here in like 2 days, I think. It was, I wouldn't necessarily say a next level. It was kind of between a current level goal and a next level goal, because it didn't feel easy, but it also didn't feel very hard, if you know what I mean. I knew I could do it. It was a matter of time. And I wanted to get it before my birthday, which I did. And so I kept focusing on it and being persistent. And I didn't, again, I wanted to get it before my birthday. I didn't really know how that would happen. I didn't really see that happening. But it just sort of did. It was actually a very kind of anticlimactic manifestation. It just kind of fell into place. But if I had just focused on it that one time, it wouldn't have happened. But even though I didn't know how it would happen in the time frame I wanted it to happen within, the fact that I kept focusing on it and I kept saying, this is what I want to happen. And I even said, I remember thinking to myself, I really don't know why I'm focusing on it, because I don't know how it could happen within the next month. Even though I felt that way, I kept focusing on it and focusing on it and focusing on it. And, it happened. Just sort of fell into place. That's what I mean, is that even if you have nothing else, as long as you're making forward progress, you're not getting super stuck in resistance, which I know a lot of people are, so it's a separate sort of thing. But as long as you're making forward progress and you're being persistent, you're going to get there. It's just a matter of when, not if. I really think people should take that to heart. It's not a matter of when, it's a matter of when, not if.
Don't worry about how it looks.
Right.
It might look differently than the next person's.
Right.
It might not, you might not even get it. The manifestation might not come the same way. You might do different stuff, but you'll get it.
You'll get it.
Just gotta keep applying yourself to it.
Right. The worst thing you can do is give up. That's why I love this quote, because I found it to be so true. I'm going to just read it again because it's great. Do not quit. The universe always bows to persistence. And is so true. So true. So that if you quit, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have this thing, if you let go, it'll all happen. No, it won't really. Not unless you're actually right there on the brink of it.
And then the other thing, as I think I've mentioned before, is in order to do stuff like that, that's why I would never want to teach anyone. I like the way we kind of keep doing it. I'm stuttering. I like the way you keep using the persistence with the law of attraction, because you have to be in a high, you can get things without being so spiritual, such at a high vibration. You can get things if you really are persistent. It actually really works. Whereas the other way is a little bit, if you let go, you have to be right there, or you have to live a certain way. And it's just hard for people to do that.
It's just really hard.
It's really hard to do it.
Unnecessarily
I'm reading
difficult.
A book right now where, if you can do what this guy's doing, you really will just be able to let go and do stuff. But you're going to have to do some stuff.
Right.
So that's why I like if you're persistent, just focus on that one goal, you'll get it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
So that's persistence. What's the other thing? Persistence is the key. There was another quote, right? Isn't that a quote? Persistence is the key, or whatever it is.
Not that I mentioned.
I just remember hearing it. I don't know.
It's
a cliche, something like. It's one of the only cliches I like. I think it is. Persistence is the key. And it's one of the only actual cliches that I like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's persistence.
Mm-hmm. So that is how it works. And like I said earlier, I'll go through the reasons that, the ways that it works, the reasons it is important. I said earlier that when you're persistent, you're feeding energy into your manifestation. You're making it more and more active, right? So every time you focus on your goal, you're making it that much more active, that much more potent. Okay, if you focus on it once, if I say, yeah, I really want this iMac, and then I just stop, okay, I put a little seed out there, but
it's not going to grow.
It's not going to do much. It'll do what it can, but it doesn't have enough power and momentum behind it to really forge a path through to the physical. Right? So, it's just not going to do very much that way. If I focus on it twice, it'll have more momentum behind it. Probably still not enough, but it'll have more. Each time I focus on it, I'm making it a little bigger, a little bigger, a little bigger. And it can do more. It has more energy behind it. Okay. If you're in a car trying to go uphill, you have to have a certain amount of power and momentum to be able to get up that hill. If you don't have it, you're going to stall out. You're not going to get up. It's like back when they used to have, stick shifts, and you'd have to, be in a certain gear to be able to get up the hill or whatever. And if you weren't, it's going to stall. My mother used to drive stick, and she used to let me shift, so I got pretty familiar with how it worked. But, you know what I mean? Like, or even in an airplane, if you are too, if you're trying to climb too quickly, or if you're too high up or whatever, it's going to stall. So you have to put in enough energy, enough momentum, enough focus, enough persistence on a regular basis to make it work. One of the first books I read on the law of attraction, which was Mind Power into the 21st Century by John Kehoe, said, and I don't necessarily agree 100%, but the principle is sound at least, basically that you need to visualize every day. And every day you don't visualize, you are losing momentum with your goal. I don't necessarily agree with that. Yeah, I think it's
that at all, actually.
I think it's too strong, because I've had goals where I'm bad about it for a few days, and then
you have to feel it out.
Yeah, and then I pick it up again. But it does take regular focus.
Yeah, so every other day or something. I mean,
right.
Or a few days in a row, then you stop, and a few more days in a row, then you stop. Or
I mean, I don't
know.
I always encourage my clients to do it every day.
Yeah.
Just because it's good to have that habit. But I don't necessarily do it all the time. And if you have too much resistance, it's actually counterproductive. But the principle is sound, is that, when you keep focusing on it, you're building it up, and you're making it more and more active. And like I said, the first time it's just a seed. The second time it makes it a little stronger, a little bigger. And every subsequent time you focus on it, you're adding that much more energy to that manifestation. It has to be really a good type of focus, not a daydream, not anything like that. People focus on daydreams for years and nothing happens. What I mean is really, I intend to get this goal somehow. And, the more you focus on it, the more you'll get opportunities, the more signs will start to happen and show up in your life. The more subconscious resistance will come up to the surface and all sorts of things. And it's just a matter of time. Like I said, with the iMac, I didn't see it coming. It just sort of happened. With other goals I've had, same thing. I've just focused on it. Sometimes you're afraid to. So you can become sometimes fearful or afraid of continuing on a certain goal. And I've had this happen where
Yep.
when I'm focusing on something, you're almost afraid to focus on it. I've had clients stop focusing on a goal because it gets fearful, it becomes fearful to them.
And then you're like afraid it won't happen or how it will happen.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know what I mean? Like, that is something I find happening a lot where when it's almost a good sign because it means you are making progress, but you have to not listen to that tendency of yours to stop focusing because it gets a little scary. So, you know, if you have a goal and you focus on it a few times and then you start feeling this fear, like, what if it doesn't happen? How's it going to happen? I don't know how it's going to happen, you know, and you're obsessing about that and it's keeping you from focusing on it. Like I said, that's a good sign because it does mean that you are making progress. But if you do quit and don't keep moving forward, then you won't get it. You know, you'll stop right there and you'll tell your subconscious that this is impossible. But if you work through that fear and despite the fear, you move forward anyway and you keep, and I've done this, you know, I did this with, I had a goal for, you know, I have an active ongoing goal, but it's a lot better than I thought it was going to be for number of clients for co-creation coaching. And I had no idea how it would happen, but I started focusing on it and choosing it, which is really scary. We all know this. And even though, you know, I had that fear, the more I worked through that fear and said, I'm going to focus on this anyway, no matter what happens, the more it started to move. Things started to happen. I started to get clients. People started to sign up. It felt easier and easier and easier. So if you have this attitude of, I will move forward, I will focus on this no matter what happens, no matter how fearful I become, you know, no matter how hard this is, I will keep focusing on this. You will get there. That's your pathway forward through that fear. You know, so if you do that, I would say you're virtually guaranteed of getting that goal. And the bigger the goal, the scarier it is. I've had clients, you know, they say, oh yeah, I want this thing, and they're daydreaming about it. And I say, okay, now write down your goal statement. I'll go through with them and form a goal statement, and they'll write it down and feel good. And then I say, now read that, and then say, I choose this for myself. And every single time they're like, oh, that's a lot harder. You know, it's difficult choosing it for yourself. I've talked about choosing your goal before, making it real for you. But if you do that and you keep doing it daily or whatever works for you, twice a day, whatever, then it will move. You'll see progress. You know, things will start to happen. It might not be very pleasant. You might have a lot of resistance, but you will see progress. Right? So even if you have that fear, you still have to move forward through it and keep being persistent. And the more you're persistent, the more successful, the more chance of success you have. So that is, like I said, the biggest key. That's why persistence is the greatest key to success in manifesting. If you don't have it, you will not succeed.
Now, don't persistently slam into resistance over and over
again.
No,
and that's
don't do that, folks. And I just want to remind everybody that don't do that and come back and say I'm persistent. Wait a minute, you know, how are you being persistent? You've got to be intelligently persistent.
Right.
But if you are intelligently persistent, it'll move.
Yeah.
Something will happen to let you know what the deal is with that goal. You'll get that goal, or you know.
There's actually, I won't discuss it today. There is a, let's say, counterbalancing force, a counterbalancing act you can take that is equally necessary. Okay. So I'm saying persistence is the greatest key. There's a second greatest key.
You're just putting everyone to suspense. I don't even know what it is.
Neither one is St. Peter.
That's right.
We know that.
I will not mention what it is now, but it will take care of what Justin's saying, what I said earlier. It will nullify that whole thing of running into resistance, running into resistance, running into resistance. It will get rid of that. If you use these two keys together, it will get rid of that. And actually, I'll put this out there right now, a little plug. Let's say this. If you want to know what that counterbalancing key is, sign up for our upcoming class, because that's where we'll really be discussing this in greater detail. So we have a class coming up on September 20th called The Art of Reality Creation 3.0. We are making progress. This is the third iteration of this class. It is a live online 90-minute class.
Live.
And in this class, we'll be discussing all these principles for success and manifestation. Everything you need to know to manifest. Because there are a lot of people out there who are really frustrated that, their manifestations aren't coming to them the way they want them to. They're not getting the results they want with the law of attraction. And, some people even think like the law of attraction doesn't work for them, which always makes me sad because it does. And I always tell my clients, I've never had a client where I say, you know what, you're a lost cause. I can't. The law of attraction just doesn't work for you.
You're just lost for you, sir. Law of attraction does not work.
It just doesn't work for you.
For everybody else, but not for you.
Not for you, yeah. No, I've always been able to pinpoint that one thing, or usually that one thing, sometimes a few different things, that they're doing wrong that is causing it not to work for them. So, this is the greatest key. There is something else that counterbalances this that is just about equally as important. But you have to know how to use it. People use it in the wrong way. It's something people more or less know about, but they use it in the wrong way. It has to be counterbalanced with persistence. They kind of seem kind of paradoxical, but it's not. So instead of saying I'm going to cover it in next week's podcast, I'm going to say, if you want to know, sign up for this class. You can go to cocreationcoaching.org/ARC3, and that will be the link for signing up for that. And, in that class, I will cover this in much greater detail, what these keys are, what these, things are that you can do to really get your manifestation and really ensure that you're successful with it. So just a bit of a plug there, but I think it's essential. I think it's so important to know how all this stuff works together. So it's not something we can just put in, a podcast or something. It's something we really have to discuss in detail. So that is it. Like I said, if you want to sign up for that class, you can go to cocreationcoaching.org/ARC3, and that will let you sign up for it. You have till September 20th. You don't necessarily have to attend it live. The recording will be sent out to everyone who signed up. But it will be on September 20th at 8 p.m. Eastern. So, for those who do want to attend live, which I encourage, because you can ask questions and everything. It's much more interactive. I always encourage questions. So that's all I have for that. I think it's, like I said, a very important topic. Like I said, that's the greatest key. If you keep doing that, if you keep being persistent, then you're going to have a lot greater success with your manifestations. Once again, if you want to see the show notes for this, get the transcript, or leave a comment, you can go to cocreationcoaching.org/create027. Or if you'd like to rate or review us on iTunes or subscribe to the podcast, you can go to cocreationcoaching.org/create-iTunes, or just search for Co-Create Your Life in the iTunes store, and you'll find it there too. So I hope everyone enjoyed this, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful week. Once again, I am Brandon Oliveris.
And I'm Christine Oliveris.
And I'm Justin Williams.
Anything is possible.